In 1973, the Ingber Gallery opened. The address was 3 East 78th Street. I had the thought that it would be marvelous to have a poetry reading during the holiday season, and I asked Daniel Haberman to be the first poet to read at the gallery. Since then, the gallery has grown, seen many changes, and moved to Soho. Since then, Daniel Haberman has gone on to many one-man readings at such distinguished poetry centers as the Honors College of Wesleyan University, Books and Company, the Guggenheim Museum, and many others. Collections of his poetry were published in 1977 and 1982. Earlier this year, 5 of his newest poems were featured in the Southern Review, and 2 of these were chosen for the 1985 Anthology of Magazine Verse. He is poet in residence at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, where the American Poets Corner, similar in concept to the English one in Westminster Abbey, was dedicated this spring. He is one of the 13 electors to the Poets Corner who chose Emily Dickinson and Walt Whitman for 1984, and have since chosen Herman Melville and Edgar Allan Poe for 1985. I think it's appropriate to conclude my introduction to Daniel Haberman's poetry reading with some very brief comments from critics and poets. They will suggest to you what has happened to him since his first reading at the Ingber Gallery. Mr. Douglas Bush, I can admire the poems and recognize the emotional and verbal energy and a rhythmical instinct. Howard Nemerov, Haberman's poems are delicate, sensitive, and intelligent. And here is Daniel Haberman.
Tuning up. You are doubtless, like myself, wrote Flaubert. You have the same terrifying and tedious depths. There is a wall, a furtive wall, bluely dark, in among the hills. Come rest your thought, leave behind the wills, then go beyond, bring your human ills. I signal now a poison call, there beyond the furtive wall. When I have gathered in the night, who can time the clocking hours? Who can time where day begins? When I have gathered in the night, when I have stalked from space to space, in all compartments of my heart. Who can time the clocking hours? Who can tell the tolling time? In all the rooms where I reside, and lie myself to sleep at night, and lie myself to sleep at night, in all compartments of my heart. By way of program notes, let me say first it's very nice indeed, grand to be back at the Ingber Gallery after so many years. And to orient both of us, the program will be less than an hour, including a short 5 to 10 minute intermission. Poetry is too condensed, compressed, without a break. Both the audience and the poet need a pause, or so say I. The next 5 poems are the ones that Mrs. Ingber referred to in the Southern Review this year. They're quite new. And as with painters, if you tell them what they did 15 years ago or 5 years ago, it's not as interesting as last month or last year. So the next 5 poems are from this spring's Southern Review. One drop upon a rusted leaf is torn from broken eyes. It sits apart from memory. A heart will need its lies and glean the fictive and its truth, though both the broken shard. Where is inexperience for hearts so wildly hard? A flower cups one tear. Night sheds dawn its dew. Where does the flower weep to lend the day its hue? It's often been said by composers and poets that there is an aura of a poem or a composition that takes one over and precedes the pre-heard music that becomes the poem or the composition. If you had spent the day in Paris at the Rodin Museum and then gone to an organ recital at Notre Dame and then beat the Parisian hotel system by taking the overnight train, and you got there and at the station it said the Orient Express, 11 o'clock at night. Nancy, of course, is Stendhal's Lucien Levin, and then Stuttgart, Salzburg, of course, is Mozart, and Vienna, and Budapest. You would wake up in the morning, and you would remember that the ancient Greeks thought that the eyes were the sexiest part of the anatomy. Or in Alexander Pope's words, the eyes are the window on the bosom. And this is called Morning on the Orient Express. Have you seen Copelia's eyes, soft to the night, expansive wild? Do not be misled, though passions here, they may glint in thought contrariwise. Say, have you seen Copelia's eyes? Have you gleaned her sudden brow? A quickened study is allowed by the tilting yellow of her hair, and a pursing wit that frame belies. Say, have you seen Copelia's eyes? And have you heard Copelia laugh? The comic lilt on other paths beguiles a star in open hand unto her smile of traveled sighs. Say, have you seen Copelia's eyes? Untitled. In the purple of an autumn, when the brook still flowing free forgave the land in anger which seemed apart from me, as leaned from rock to rock that leapt the farther way, I wandered brook to run side and whirled the slipping day. What rugged thing then drove, hurled up the other shore, the love of days to come, with the years of heretofore? I mentioned the aura of a mood that precedes a poem. I found myself recently, for reasons beyond my knowledge, on the very top of a banana boat freighter off the coast of Peru. And I was looking at the mountains in the distance, and it was the early of the evening, the dark was just coming on, and it seemed to me that it was definitely an auburn sky. It was a veritable haze there. And that led, of course, to a ballad in the narrative troubadour tradition. And if you will just remember that the word seal, it's a problem with translations. We have a ceiling here. But instead of getting Peruvian Indians, the creative mind goes in such a crazy way that I got European peasants perhaps in the time of Giselle, which is my favorite ballet. So if you'll pretend with me and go back with me, perhaps to Giselle's time, we'll have a ballad called The Sky in an Auburn Haze. With cattle lowing to the hills, the sky in an auburn haze, a girl delights in her peasantry, and the man would dance to a gaze. Her room was sealed, though night was quick, and the moon flowed down the path. The flowers shone of an ancient ache, and the stars despaired for her laugh. The boughs were veiled in spreading green. The path was short, forever now. The woman halted infinitely to the music of a lowing cow. But he loved as the wind where he listed, she'd sigh. Dark is the late of night, where the moon has soothed the sky. The last of the new poems that were in this year's Southern Review is a 4-line lyric that is a solo quatrain. It's perhaps my most favorite form. They come very quickly and they're almost unchangeable. When I was in the west of Ireland, there was a young woman, we call her Colleen, about 17 years old, and at the end of the conversation she said, "I have to be going now, Clumber." And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't know that word." And she said, "Me mother often would clumber." So I was listening somehow. I spent the day with Bartok's in Bluebeard's Castle, and on and over again. I couldn't understand what Bartok was doing with the story of Bluebeard. Not that he actually murdered all those women, he just put them away somewhere in his memory. And it suddenly hit me that what the opera really is a metaphor for the artist in the solitude that is peculiar to the 20th century. Rightly or wrongly, that's what hit me. Clumbering in the umbered night, isolate near the veiling dawn, stumbling to the wanting sky, here in the heart of solitude. I've often been asked to group my solo quatrains together in a reading, and you're the guinea pigs for this experiment. I picked out 6 or 7 additional ones from all the years that I've been writing. Loitering Hill. The other day, near Loitering Hill, green by the grass in pranced review, I saw my past and pondered why it was to be my future too. While we're waiting for our new guest, I'll just say that being in an art gallery, the thought has to occur, and I'm very partial. I was here for the opening of this particular painter's work. I think she's just very good. The solo quatrain, I think, is to the longer poem as a drawing would be to a painting. That's my sense of it. Unparented by the blurting world, things disorient the plunging sky, and weary to bed I take my thoughts, in tumbreled night I desperate lie. Come in. Poets count their readers on fingers and toes, unlike novelists who use computers. So you're all very welcome. continue on with the solo quatrains. This one has 4 lines, and one is a repeat line, which is somewhat outrageous. There's a rotting in me grows, a bulbing canker of the soul. At my peril I'd unearth it. There's a rotting in me grows. With apologies to Thomas Hardy's Journeying Boy, this is titled The Journeying Girl. So ramble in the lolling hills, yet stay with me this gruffing night. You neighbored love, O journeying girl, in the fretted surface of the day. I fear the forest of my fortress heart, beyond the lurching days when love may end, where cavernous time bewilders me and scolds the member that won't mend. I'm sure you know how composers are with composers, and painters with painters, and poets with poets. Robert Lowell's comment on seeing this poem is it's the dirtiest poem you'd ever seen, or one of the dirtiest. Though mild is the wind of day, the year in its flowering burst, a bird sang alone, denying, I can't begin, but continue. And the last of these 4-line lyrics has a very important piece of information I may have to give you, which is very comforting for me. It says that a rose unfolds in the same pattern as the planet Venus in its 8-year orbit of the sun. I think that's an extraordinary thought. I find it very comforting. And whoever named Venus, the planet Venus, I like to believe knew that. Although obviously it was done by the ancients. Would you linger to suppose Venus orbits as the rose yields its fold to patterned time, though we declaim on the sublime? Over a decade ago, I had the privilege of traveling alone through the hill towns of Tuscany and Umbria. Traveling on dirt roads, I came across a stream that the map called Nestor, which, as we all know, is a most august name from Homer, both of Homer's books. And I did what every sane person ought to do, I think. I got out a copy of Horace from my briefcase, made no attempt to read it, put it under my head as a pillow, put a flower in my hair, and went to sleep. And Robert Frost came to visit me. He really did. Some people say he had already passed away by that time, but I tell you he came to visit me. And he sat down, and I told him what I just told you in memory form. And then he spoke a few words that are perhaps terse, I'm not sure. And then I answer at greater length because it's my poem. And then he responds quite tersely with one line from his famous poem Birches that we all read in high school. I don't know where this poem stands in my sense of my work, but I do know that it's the poem that I've written that I personally love the best. A chance conversation with Robert Frost. To the fields of Tuscany I go, where no language barriers appear, a hilltop higher to a mountain ridge, where I walk in the same field of yellow, and I drink from the same waterfall, while my old friend the cuckoo reassures, farmers are farmers, daffodils yellow, apple blossom still blossom, whitest white. I have never seen a more gentle place though I think I've been here many times. By an old stream the map calls Nestor. Do you believe in coincidence? Horace provides the sweetest of pillows, and one yellow buttercup in my hair, I drift away in Tuscany. Poet? Still alone? What are you doing here? What's here in a field on a mountain top, by old streams of Tuscany? I remember a more gentle time, so languished by fleeted memory. I had picked nameless ones, and sprigs of apple blossoms that blossomed whitest white. Over there, beyond the stream called Nestor, past the daisies, a swinger of birches, climbing limb by limb of a chestnut tree, proud as only a young boy is smug when he's climbed the top of the tallest one. A fertile time in a fertile field, when not yet smitten by puberty or Romulus's fraternal night. He doesn't know he's climbed his highest height. Oh, you were right. I think you were right. I don't know where it's likely to go better. Untitled and in 5 lines. There's a whole different sense to a 5-line poem. Not that one knows in advance that it's going to be 5 lines or 4 lines or a sonnet. I believe form has its own mysterious ways of proceeding. If one knows in advance, I don't see the point of doing it. Now time drifts and worlds whine by the weeds of inanition, which skies my soul pouring down. Rutting things shed themselves like a craning vine in teeming soil. Interaction of the flowers. Petunias raise their lovely heads. I'd rather like to know. Interaction of the flowers, while weeding it's observed. But I and you, we bind ourselves, lashings to the ground, and often brood the weight of us. Annuals we're not. Untitled in 2 stanzas. The trees in gentle umbrage swayed, determined times no perch to loiter. The dancing fears were unallayed, the soul was weary of the slaughter. Dreams were real, the real were dreams, and all besides I might have seen. The heart won't mistress to the mind. My heart's not mistress to my mind. A Pilgrim Soul, with apologies to Mrs. Browning and Mr. Yeats and all the others from whom I echoed that wonderful image. Also, there is a comment of Sigmund Freud's that I'm very partial to, that it takes a great amount of sophistication to believe in coincidence. I think the Oriental cultures have a much easier time with this than the Occidental. A Pilgrim Soul. There is a time of unsweet regress. Who then believes in coincidence? With sophistication beyond our years, temptation rises to hate that womb and stay the time when I appeared to love the world in innocence. That bloated carnage scowls me mute, and what innocence dared not demand, cast round my scanned and pilgrim soul. I was at a party recently, and as one does, was talking over a drink, and there was a very nice man there who said, excuse me, I think we're having a crisis. The crisis is the leaking of the pitcher.
We're sorry about that.
That's okay. Actually, it's a good introduction to this poem. Because it's what the particular man who I'd not met before said, and we got to talking about poetry, and he said, one of my favorite poets is Archilochus. And I said, well, you've come to the right stall. I just happen to have here 20 years ago, two Germans were wandering around in Egypt, German scholars, and they heard about a lost fragment. As you know, fragments are particularly good to find in Egypt because of the dryness. And they thought, oh, this is a great philosophical find, and the natives, like all the movies we've seen, brought them the fragment and gave them, probably gave them a bottle of something. The natives went away. What it turned out to be was the longest extant fragment of the very great poet Archilochus. As you will remember, Archilochus dates approximately or slightly later than Homer, but definitely earlier than Sappho, which means that he dates with the writing of the Old Testament, the Odyssey, etc. It's from that period. That's pretty old. Archilochus, by the way, the name means first sergeant. And I'll just tell you a little bit about it, and we'll get on with the fragment. He was a mercenary from the island of Paros. And if I tell you the shock of these two German scholars when there was a conference held in Italy, one of those wonderful scholarly places by a lake, and it resulted in a scholarly text this thick that was published. The question with regard to this poem, which is the cheapest seduction of a blonde revenge poem because the oldest sister wouldn't have him, because the father, who was a commercial bourgeois, wouldn't come across with the dowry. Ending up in a description of his own most interesting activities, which, of course, with Archilochus was himself. He was part of the me generation. Unfortunately, this whole conference really became a question. I hope this is okay in the painting gallery. Poetry circles, it's all right. The whole conference hinged on, was Archilochus at the end of the poem engaging in premature ejaculation, or did he actually have at it, in fact, with the young lady? I'm saying this in a light tone because I don't think poetry should be considered precious. And I don't think poetry belongs to the academies or the universities or the poets or anybody. It just belongs the way anything else does. And it's as simple as that. So I'm just, having told you a little bit about it, I'm just going to tell you a couple of more things, and we'll see if we can make a little sense of it. As you probably know, most people would say that in the early part of the tradition that preceded writing poems, that is before Simonides, which would be just before Aeschylus, poets didn't write their poems down. In fact, you'd be a Sisyphe if you wrote your poems down. They're all done in the head, and when you published them, you went into a pub and sang them with your lyre and so on. So you would have Sappho and Archilochus and Homer and Hesiod. Those, I think, are the four greats from that period, the 7th and 8th century BC. Now, Archilochus comes home from the wars, and he's through fighting, and Lycambus is going to give him a dowry. Lycambus's daughter, Neobule, says, "Screw off. I don't want you." Archilochus is not the man to be treated this way. This is the days when poets were still feared. Not because they were poets, but because they would write a poem attacking them. And they would go to the local pub, which is just what Archilochus did. Today, poets in America are sort of on the level of policemen. They're afraid to do it because you'll get a gang and go after them. Well, okay. Neobule had a younger sister, and you know how sibling rivalry is. The younger sister decides to wait for Archilochus, and she's coy and cute and pretends a little this, a little that. What happens, of course, is Archilochus says what men have, or women have always said when they're rejected by the opposite sex. She was no damn good in bed. I never slept with her anyhow. She was sleeping with everybody in town, and who the hell wanted her? And she was ancient. Actually, most scholars agree that Neobule was about 17, and her younger sister, it's clear from the metaphoric usage, was just, we'd say, 13. She was certainly in puberty. Okay, now what you're going to hear is the youngest girl, and I'll end this section with Archilochus. And you'll have to bear with me. We'll see what happens because I've not read this before to a group. First you have the young girl, and then Archilochus. It's his poem, as I said, with the Robert Frost, so he goes on at greater length. And then he answers, and then he describes what he did. We know that he actually sang this in the pubs. He published it that way, and we know what the result was. And I'll end this section by reading an epigram from the Greek anthology that will tell you what happens to the three sisters. There's a third one that doesn't enter into this, although some scholars disagree about that. I have given this poem, it's the longest extant fragment of Archilochus, just found in 1964. Peter Green, the University of Austin, the University of Texas at Austin, did one that was in the TLS. He's in the premature ejaculation group. Guy Davenport, the University of Kentucky, did one. He's ambivalent, and I like to think that Archilochus was successful. Or I suspect that the young girl was successful, but the scholars don't see it that way. Remember that the young girl speaks first. Archilochus comes back, he's found out the news, and he meets the young girl. This translation was done in collaboration with Professor Marilyn the author. Archilochus seducing. I'm 13-year-old girl. Contain yourself. I too endure. Calm yourself. Although, if hurried, and the spirit goes, there is a waiting virgin here, gentler of the lovelier strain, soft with desire, she'd marry now. Indeed, her sorrows are for you, though faultless do I find her form. Then I counted things she'd said. O daughter of Infimido, now remembered noble and wise, there in the bind of darkening earth. He's telling her that her mother's dead, so she's on her own, honey. The ample goddess brings delights, apart from the divine affair. Of these young men may be sufficed. Let's counsel with the willing gods, and when all the shadows blacken, at our leisure, take our pleasure, though, as you order, I'll abide. I've known to wait with my desire beneath the arch, beside the gate. Don't begrudge my course, dear friend. I'm for the garden, bearing grass. Now Neobule's forgotten. She is, alas, just overripe. Another man may have her, fallen long since from the tree of her bloom and the charm that she'd had before. Raving in lust of satiety, this harridan flaunts her vigor. To the crows with her. The neighbor's laugh won't be on a wife of mine. Ah, it is you I wish, neither dishonest nor other-sided, while she is quick with anger, and many are her friends. Urged toward eagerness, I fear lest the get, as from a throwing bitch, drop blind, and on the wrong day. Saying so, I reached for the girl. Among a burst of flowers, gently she's prone. Then placing her neck to my pillowed arm, we hid within my tender cloak. Tremble-eyed as a fawn with fear, her breasts were encouraged. So sweet my hand caressed. Then I revealed my raw skin ever new, entertained with intruded vigor, and gaining the whole beauty of her body, let loose the white force of my strength, as lightly I touched her yellow hair. That's the longest fragment that we have of the poet Archilochus. Many years later, in the 1st century AD, a Roman consul named Lentulus Gaetulicus, who was later executed by the Emperor Gaius, wrote an epitaph on Archilochus. Now, this is almost as long a time span as from William the Conqueror to us. 1st century AD. And this will tell you what happened to the daughters and why poets were feared, not for their talent, but for their rottenness. Here by the sea, well, that was in the days before poets became the equivalent of vice presidents at IBM, and they just said and did what they liked. Epitaph on Archilochus, and we'll close this section with this. Here by the sea is the sign of his tomb. Archilochus, who bloodied Sibyl Helicon when he immersed a bitter muse, first with the viperous venom of his wrath. O wayfarer, pass softly by indeed, lest rouse the settled wasps of his lone sleep, flowing with tears. The keening lycambus has known the sting. 3 daughters hanged themselves. Thank you. Ancient Greek fragment. But seeing as it's the Christmas season, and having just read Archilochus, I would like to do some epigrams. The tradition among poets is that Archilochus was the first to bloody Sibyl Helicon, as Gaetulicus tells us. I doubt that that's true. I think poets have had a need to get their pencil out and get even with that SOB who said something or did something or so on. But the writing of epigrams is an ancient way of venting your spleen, and it's valid to this day. And I think we just start on a lighter tone. So, and I'm back to my 4-liners, but this is a very different kind. I'm just going to read 4 of these. These are all true incidents. And being as it's a gallery, I think I should start with a painter. I won't tell you who it is because that would be, these days she would hang me instead of the other way around. But it's a true incident. All these are true, and all these are what actually was said. I just put them, I guess, made a little music out of it. It's called Artists Dining in the Hamptons. The ultimate Stendhalian place. And it has an epigraph from Baudelaire, which says, "The study of the beautiful is a duel in which the artist cries out with fear before he is vanquished." And this is in quotes. "Then you're giving a dinner, not without me. To improve my art, I'll leave a husband home and improve cachet with a gallery drone, then delight in my canvas that vanquished me." She actually said that. Then, of course, we have the poetaster. And this has an epigraph from Alain Lesage, who you all know from Gil Blas. He mauled them, every one without mercy. It was easy enough to see he was an author. And again, it's in quotes. The poetaster, and I'm sure you know that reference from Ben Jonson and indeed from Horace. Not without lessons. You're writing a verse? Come loiter on my euphonious perch. $12 the hour, unmetered fee. Often the Village Voice has published me. I'd like to kill that place. And then, of course, we have, this is called Upon Asking Someone to Read a Poem. And the epigraph is from my, I guess you'd say it's my Bible, that is John Keats's letters. And it says, I will not run with the most vulgar of all crowds, the literary. Upon asking someone to read a poem. Again, it's in quotation marks. And it actually happened. Not before lunch shall I read your poem. The clock hasn't rung for delusion's time. I didn't come to your languorous home to brightly listen to your putrid rhyme. And the last one of these is from my most recent book, which has a whole series of epigrams that have names on it. And this fellow's name is Giovanni Angelo Medici. He also is known as Pius IV. And he got a hold of a painter. I discovered this when I was in the Sistine Chapel. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It just didn't make sense to me that Michelangelo would have painted cloths over the genitalia of the male figures on the Last Judgment. It turned out that Pius IV had commissioned a painter named Daniel da Volterra to paint his cloths. He became known by the other painters, who of course found him despicable, as Bragatone, the breeches maker. So here is, just being silly in the Christmas spirit, here is Giovanni Angelo Medici. It was Pius IV who ordered a cloth and had breeches adorned so he wouldn't fawn and no longer giggle at news by Michelangelo. In the history of art, it's always happened that there are painters, composers, and poets. When I read at the Ingber Gallery back in '73, whatever it was, over a decade ago, I read some poems by a man named Frederick Goddard Tuckerman. I think he's one of the finest American poets that we've ever had. I was at a party several years ago in honor of Elizabeth Bishop and Elliott Carter, et cetera, MLA meeting type thing. And there were two other poets there. And I'm going to read a sonnet of his now. The other two poets immediately knew, as I did, the last four lines of this sonnet, and we recited out loud with reverence. He said, how is it that somebody, Tennyson admired him? Tennyson asked him to critique his work back and forth. Emerson admired him. Eva Winters in the contemporary mode did. And I'm pleased to say, because obviously I'm what's called a Tuckerman freak, that one of the first things I did at St. John Cathedral is, in addition to the Poets' Corner, is a poetry wall, which is dedicated to deceased American poets. And we'll have 6-month displays. We're starting with Tuckerman. But you judge for yourself. I also noticed that a year ago, Galway Cannell did a reading in New York of 4 major American 19th century poets, and it was Poe, Whitman, Dickinson, and Tuckerman. So I have great hopes that Tuckerman will be revived. I think he deserves it. I'd like to read a sonnet of his. An upper chamber in a darkened house where ere his footsteps reached right manhood's brink, terror and anguish were his cup to drink. I cannot rid the thought nor hold it close, but dimly dream upon that man alone. Now, though the autumn clouds most softly pass, the cricket chides beneath the doorstep stone, and greener than the season grows the grass. Nor can I drop my lids, nor shade my brows, but there he stands beside the lifted sash. And with a swooning of the heart, I think where the black shingles slope to meet the boughs, and shattered on the roof like smallest snows, the tiny petals of the mountain ash. In 1962, Oxford University Press published his complete poems. I was able to buy them in England. I was not able to find a copy anywhere in the United States, in any of the bookstores. I'll do one more sonnet, and I would suggest to you that Robert Frost, who I think of as that old scoundrel because he never revealed sources. He kept his own counsel. Americans call that, I think, playing poker close to the vest. I believe, it's my fantasy, but I believe it, that he knew his Tuckerman very well. The conversational poem that Frost is so famous for. I'll now do a sonnet of Tuckerman's that was written before the Civil War began. And you judge for yourself. That boy, the farmer said with hazel wand, pointing him out half by the haycock hid, though bare 16, can work at what he's bid, from sun till set, to cradle, reap, or band. I heard the words, but scarce could understand, whether they claimed a smile or gave me pain, or was it aught to me in that green lane, that all day yesterday, the briars amid, he held the plow against the jarring land steady, or kept his place among the mowers, whilst other fingers sweeping for the flowers brought from the forest back a crimson stain. Was it a thorn that touched the flesh, or did the pokeberry spit purple on my hand? It's Frederick Goddard Tucker. I'd like to read several what I call woman poems. The word wait here is used as in to wait for someone, not as in the weight of a stone. This is called Midnight and a Rambling Sky. Lady, I cannot say I'm pleased with me as I par the gap of age and youth, and I wander in the weight of night, and I wonder where the wrong began. Lady, if we could now just have met, and time were back to younger time, but love defaults to a rambling sky, the stars lean down and quietly laugh. This is a sonnet which is subtitled A Letter from the Virgin Isles. And I ask you to view it the way it was published, with the first 13 lines in quotation marks, as a letter. And the 14th line is a sarcastic comment on the poet, me. It's a sonnet, A Letter from the Virgin Isles. When you have resolved what it is you want, and can think of me in the tender time, then I'll come to you in the tender time. Hold trembling hand to a trembling hand. But now you live in another's house, and walk with him in another's house, yet cling to me with a trembling hand, and surprise the fierceness of my heart. Give up this thought, leave me be. Love, I say, is a Catholic thing. Affairs are not by love construed, as other than the world has known. Compose yourself, conduct your way. Woman, I say, don't come when time is terse. He keeps the woman, while I hold the verse. In the wait of night. And again, wait is as in to wait for someone. I, by a lake, face a scouring sky, and think of the time when love lay by. My love lay by, delightedly eating wine we were drinking, when I and my love faced the scouring sky. The scouring sky. Now I, on my back, with a book to delight, think of hours to come in the wait of night, the wait of night, listlessly dreaming and noteworthy seeming. I'll think of the time when love lay by, my love lay by. The remainder men. It's a lovely old word, lost now except for legal wills, and will probably disappear altogether. The lawyers are busy being modern the way everybody else is, and they're going to have legal language we can all understand. I suppose that's important, but we lose words that I think are rather wonderful and have been kept as a tradition. The remainder men. Forgive the remainder men, whose hireling hearts are beyond the time of turning back, whose besieging hearts are appositioned to the backward years, and dream, oh dream now and then, of a time when love believed, and no one asked why, the commitment to soft firm. I believe the poets, and indeed all artists, should be in the business of questions, not the business of answers. It's one thing to have a vision. I think that's important. It's quite another thing to think that one is a visionary. Many fine poets have gotten into great trouble through the grandiosity of thinking they had answers rather than questions. I believe all of us, painters, composers, poets, are in the business of correctly stating the problem. But how does one individual live in our society? Huizinga, Johann Huizinga that is, suggested that, and I'm quoting, every epoch sighs for a better world. The more profound the despair caused by the chaotic present, the more intimate is the sigh. But the intimacy changes in its structure with the epochs. Civilizations are mortal, I think Valerie said. That is to say, the sonnet I'm now going to read, the Greeks would not have understood the concept of the sonnet. Many classical scholars have assured me of this. They could not experience solitude. The rest of the poems to finish the reading deal with this subject, and where I think we are today. They could not experience solitude as 20th century man does. I'm suggesting, as Picasso said, the artist should shut up, so I will just suggest this one comment. I do believe human nature is changeless. I do believe that. But the perception and the experience of certain realities does change. Different civilizations, different epochs are different. And this poem is called The Sonnet and the War Meter. And the title, of course, is punning on the ancients' use of the word, of the hexameter, rather than pentameter. which is the war meter. And of course, the sonnet is in hexameter. If I write a poem, is it not mine to keep? Do I really have to share it, intruded on? Unsharing, I'm an expert at living alone and dueling with slow silence in the thorough day. Euphony loved and book cared, though empty delight. I'm not at all sure I'd want to be with me. I have many thoughts I no longer share, since he secreted them to a distant time. He carried off my secrets to a garish maze, no less unkind, not knowing he'd impaired. Exposed as Isaac, I stood upon a stage and, laughter besieged, I began to live unshared. Do we all share such secrets when we failing care? Do I live alone and unsharing share? Untitled. Even now the russet winds blow over and over the lanky field, long since the banking geese heel and the tiny snows stray into and out the promenade of trees, while grass receives the whitened shame, acquiesced into the violet same. Quite a new poem called A Silence Settled Upon the Earth. Though a shooting sprout of spring begins, and a prescient sleep of bulbs is fled, a silence settles upon the earth, blossom by blossom upon the earth, in a quiet of mere momentum. All sigh a scream of never again, and silence settles upon the earth, blossom by blossom upon the earth. Though spring is new, there's no idea for a curring day, and silence settles upon the earth, blossom by blossom upon the earth. I'm going to close with 3 poems that continue this theme. I suppose I write these because I need to, in my perception of as I see things. This is a sonnet. Primitive, in my perpetual dawn, I seek the sea edged by a sundry sky, and flail-watered notions that tyrannize, and monstrous bankrupt the lovelier word, give way of theories, they destroy the wise, accede back through the eloquent heart, give into the clouds in the awesome day, curl in the sea at the edge of the sky, while tedious license stifles the past, ignoring music that inures the heart, ignoring mere language, seamster of thought. Let the freer declaim, mediocre on the trolling sea, drained of denizen, primitive to my perpetual dawn. I came back from the west of Ireland several years ago with this poem. I see it as a continuation of this theme. In a sea-dreamed cloister house, lived by the walls of the night, lived with a fear of a fear, and the turfside clashings. In a sea-dreamed cloister house, lived of a time dismembered, lived with the old sea lashings, and no one to answer. In a sea-dreamed cloister house, lived, though the night remembers, and unruffled flows the sky above the draggled beach. I'd like to close with an ode subtitled No Child of Mourning. Obviously, I'm using the form, I'm sure you know it as one of the French love poetic forms, for my own nefarious purposes. And they're usually sung early in the morning, so it's subtitled No Child of Mourning. Let us say I'm sad for all the world. Oh, let's just say I'm sad for me and you. You cannot change the things you do. And I, no child of mourning, though yet of yesterday, I cannot stay. Let us say I'm silent to the world. Oh, let's just say I'm silently unfurled, while whispering up a spiral and reveal, I cannot change the hum of you and me. It is easy as the hero, hard to live a life. Oh, let's just say I'm sad for all the world. Thank you.